now I'm talking about the first part, identify unusuals. Unusual means unexpected event. Need to act quickly, sometimes or usually. For example, let's imagine pandemic influenza issues. However, or does anybody just involved in the pandemic influenza? Pandemic influenza の時に2000いつだっけ13 or so 誰かかかったことありますか However involved in the you also?
Yeah, 2009.
あ、そう、2009 yeah ありました So yeah, of course we have to act quickly in such situations and we did rapid control even in the meantime or work carried out. So we need a systematic approach when we identify unusuals. For example, you are experienced a public health office, right? So have you ever experienced such situation? No? 特にないですか? Okay, she said she had no such outbreak or risk management issues in public health. So I'll tell you our systematic approach. So this is some sort of index of outbreak management issues. First, confirm unusuals. So as I mentioned, the first one is confirm unusuals. Or let's say pick up unusuals. Yeah, for the public health practitioner epidemiologist, pick up unusuals is also a very big issue. However, today we do not have time to move into it. So just skip it. And case definition and identification. So this part is we have to define unusuals when we encountered some public health crisis issues in front of you and collect information of unusuals. Okay, I'll come back later. Then, after collecting the information, so you have to analyze such information from according to time, place, person. However, 時場所人っていうのは習いました。Time, place, person. You've learned, right? Epidemiology, a lecture of the epidemiology. Time, place, person. Yeah. This is I think, yeah, as a long history of my long history in the field epidemiologist, time, place, person. These three words is one of the most important and most valuable point for そうなんですよ real public health issue. I'll come back again and again. After summarizing the data according to time, place, person, and analyzing the data according to time, place, person, you have some idea about this hypothesis. You have some idea hypothesis according to the real cause of public health crisis in front of you, or let's say outbreaks in front of you. Now you have involved in. Then now you're moving to the analytical study in order to test your hypothesis. You had a lecture about epidemiology statistics, 95 confidence intervals or whatever. You've learned, right? ちょっとこうした後でレビューしましょうね。Okay, so I'll review such concept very simply later. And case control study, cohort study, hopefully ありますよね。Okay, later I'll review a little bit. Then we have ideas, and as I mentioned, then after, let's confirm the sources, risk factors, or transmission route of this outbreak in front of you. Then moving on to the implementation of control measures. That's some sort of control measures based on your findings. Now we are moving on here, right? Then after that, communication is also important issues for public health professionals and field epidemiologists. Because without these communications, public health communications, so maybe it's almost impossible to prevent the future same time crisis outbreaks. ここもちょっと本当は This part is also very important, very huge issues. However, today we are focusing on from here to here, case definition to implementation of control measures. So that is some sort of index or general schemes of outbreak management. So I'll step one by one, I'm moving on one by one to explain in detail. So some detection, unusuals. So how do you detect unusuals? As I mentioned, we have a routine surveillance. Does any, those who used to work in the hospitals, do you know how many reportable disease under routine surveillance in Japan? どれぐらいか知ってますか? It's more than 100. As far as I'm concerned, it's too much, too many, too manageable. Or excuse me, you're from Malaysia. How many reportable disease, communicable disease under routine surveillance in your country?
I'm not too sure.
It's yeah, maybe I imagine it's less than 20 or 30. That's manageable, but more than 100 is too much in Japan. I'm a government employee, and I'm also responsible for national surveillance. But however, as far as I'm concerned, national surveillance in Japan, it's still we have a lot to do. Because この100ある中ではなんか名前も知らないような病気があるので Among 100, it's quite a very strange disease we included in this surveillance system. Some mycotic diseases with some strange names or whatever. So as far as I'm concerned, national surveillance system in Japan is communicable disease. Still, we have a lot to do. But anyway, or sometimes from the laboratories, unusual things have happened from the laboratory or general public or media. Yeah, recently the power of media is very strong. So sometimes the media news is very quicker than the public health channels. But so is this outbreak? This is the first step. Confirm the outbreaks. So confirm the unusuals. How to confirm? Yeah, of course, now we are focusing on outbreaks or communicable disease. Diagnosis verified or clinical cases or laboratory cases, or you have to know the expected numbers of cases or number of deaths. For those who are working in the hospital, those doctors in Japan. So when you are in the hospitals and you're working in some clinical management, almost all the time you know some laboratory, you have a good laboratory in the big hospital, right? ですからここら辺はシンプルなんですね。However, in the public health field, sometimes we are very short of laboratory data, also even in the clinical data. But based on these factors, we have to make sure, is it unusual or is it outbreaks? こういうことでですね、アウトブレイク、unusual をピックアップするんですね。But this point, to identify unusual, as I said again and again, it's a big topic for public health practitioners or field epidemiologists. But today, I'm not moving on to it. Let's say outbreak is confirmed. Sorry about that, but outbreak is confirmed. Then, as I mentioned, we have two ways. The first way, this way is immediate control measures in the meantime, using the schemes. Do you remember the circle of the communicable disease? And in order to prevent the communicable diseases, let's say TB or measles among human population, think about which route, which arrow is cut the circle. That's some key to the communicable disease control among human population. So last week we did this part, and today we are moving on to the investigation in order to identify what is the real bad one, some source of the contaminated food, for example, and transmission route. How to transmit bacterial, virus, pathogen, or drug resistance pathogen, or risk factors of outbreaks. The low immunization coverage, or contaminated waters, or population get together. Okay, I'll come back to this again. So after, but control in the meantime, still sometimes, control in the meantime means prophylaxis, vaccination, or whatever. But sometimes, without the evidence of outbreaks or risk management issues in front of you, some serious case still occurring, and also public pressures. For example, however, involved in the Ebola issues this week, last year, this year, 特にないですかね? Yeah, because I used to work in the WHOs, and still even now I'm working with WHO teams of Ebola, and also we dispatch field epidemiologists from Japan, Japanese field epidemiologists, to Ebola issues in West Africa. And at that time, maybe based on according to your newspapers or radio, TV program, still the case is still occurring, right? Even though after the control measures, I do not talk about in detail control measures, but the cases are still occurring in Ebola situation. And so WHO is very worried, not only WHO, but also many countries in all over the world was worried about spread and how to control, how to let them over. So that's a public pressure.